Good morning, everybody. I'm Lisa Nieto, and I'm humbled to be in the presence of so many distinguished members of our society. Uh, I hope you enjoy my lecture on what we've been trying to do at Cardinal Santos Medical Center training. I've been active in the training department since I finished. The late Dr. De Guzman, who was the chairman at the time, told me, Lisa, pag Thursdays, ikaw sa training. So, of course, you can't say no to Dr. De Guzman. So, ever since 2007, I've been part of the training committee, and recently, with the new chairman, she's made me training officer. So, in the past, I think I've changed as a training officer. I know many of my previous residents can attest to the change because in the beginning, when I first started training, I think I was a different consultant. I was new and maybe a bit too stern. But I noticed that the new tools that we've adopted has helped us a great deal in fostering a kind of change in the training that is towards patient safety. And I would like to share some of those tools. So, as a roadmap to my lecture, so you don't get lost in all the jargon, I would like to talk about the idea of continuous quality improvement, which begins with the methodology of Kaizen, which is a Japanese technique. And then I would like to talk about the importance of non-technical skills, and in so doing, move into the lecture proper, which is about SBAR, the Ishikawa diagram, and the multidisciplinary team conference, which we've been trying to do for the past 3 years regularly with our residents. So the first idea, actually, these are the roots of the continuous quality improvement. And it was in the 1960s where a Japanese form of methodology and ideology was started. And it began in the manufacturing industry. And it's called Kaizen. It means Kai, which is change, and Zen, which is good. So what the idea was to empower the employees to make small changes at the ground level. They themselves will troubleshoot the problems at the ground level, and they will create a larger impact with these small changes because they were the ones who were in the actual manufacturing process. And so the Japanese methodology was started to make small and cost-effective changes to make larger impacts in the overall industry process. And this is where continuous quality improvement started. So the employees were the ones who take ownership of all the actions that they had to do, and they would encourage their fellow employees to actually make improvements as well and to bring up the ball game. And so they would this is the Toyota manufacturing plant, and they would start at the ground level making big important changes. So the Kaizen cycle, which is also how they eventually morphed into the Plan, Do, Check, Act continuum, which was started by Walter Short at Bell Laboratories. So this is closer to the healthcare industry. And this is how they wanted to improve things so that processes would run in a better way. So the first thing would be to create a plan, to actually institute the process, to check and evaluate, and to act on it. If they needed changes, then changes would be made. Stephen Covey, who wrote Seven Habits of Effective People, said, "You cannot continuously improve interdependent systems and processes until you progressively perfect interdependent interpersonal relationships." So the importance of non-technical skills come into play. So the players have to be able to communicate well with each other. And the importance of technical skills in our industry, in the healthcare field, is that the cognitive, social, and personal resource skills that complement technical skills and contribute to safe and efficient task performance. So these non-technical skills require that there is situation awareness, decision-making, teamwork, leadership, and management of stress and fatigue, like Dr. Orachon said. And safety is not a gadget, but it is a state of mind. And this is what we try to inculcate in our residents, in our training institutions. That if you do not have technical skills and you do not know how to communicate with your fellow healthcare workers, there's an increased likelihood of error, increased likelihood of accidents, and in fact, they found this in the aviation industry, where other high-risk occupations actually include in their licensing non-technical skills. So why don't we do it in the healthcare industry, where non-technical skills can mean life or death? It's in the aviation industry that we found crew resource management as the beginnings of simulation, and it's the US anesthetists that first used this method of training to ensure better outcomes. In this part of training, communication is key. For patient safety, Kaizen and crew resource management require non-technical skills, all about communication and working with other members of the team. So in the International Patient Safety Goals put out by the Joint Commission International, the second goal is in fact improve effective communication. And it's through the hands-off technique, which I will talk about in a while, the S-bar technique. So how do we improve patient safety? There are 3 tools that we are currently practicing in our institution. And every Thursday, we have a problem case that they will discuss. And at the end, we do the S-bar. So this hands-off tool is actually, we haven't yet been able to cascade to the surgeons, to the nurses. We're practicing it amongst ourselves. But we envision that the overlap between surgeons, nurses, and anesthetists will improve patient safety if we are able to communicate in a proper manner. So this S-bar tool, I'm sure all of you are aware of it. During my time in medical school, it was slightly different. I think it was SOAP. But right now, situation, background, assessment, and recommendation is being used as a hands-off tool. Now we're starting among us palang, among the residents and the consultants. We use it in our morbidity and mortality conferences to practice, but we plan to cascade this eventually to the other medical staff. Situation is an introduction of who you are, what you're calling about, who the patient is involved. Background is what's happening to the patient, what's the background, the history. And assessment is what you've assessed the problem to be. And recommendations is your recommended treatment. So it's a quick reminder, you won't forget what to say. So it's S-bar, and it's easy to remember, and it's what you need to impart immediately. The other tool that we use, it's also called root cause analysis or cause and effect, is the Ishikawa or fishbone diagram. It was invented by Professor Kaoru Ishikawa in 1915. He lived 1915 to 1989. This was first introduced in the 1980s. And it's a way to remember to examine all the possible roots of a problem. There are 5 domains: patients, providers, policies, processes, and in our case, not plant, but environment, all leading to the outcome. Each branch of the tree, of the fishbone, is another reason why, I'll explain in a concrete example later about how to use this and how we use this in our current practice. So as an example, I'll launch into an example because it's easier to grasp it when you have a concrete example. These cases are not in complete detail because they actually happened, and I don't want to compromise anyone in the explanation of this example. So it will be very general. After an uneventful primary CS for breech presentation, epidural anesthesia was used intraoperatively and postoperatively. At the PACU, after the case, it was uneventful. The nurse was instructed, please attach the infusion. Syringe has been prepared already. 8 hours post-CS, while the patient was already in her room. This is at room 326, which is the same floor as the delivery room. The nurse on the floors noticed the infusion alarm was beeping. The IV was kinked, so the infusion's high pressure alarm went off. The epidural infusion had been connected to the IV all this time. So what had happened?